Monday's raid on Mar-a-Lago has sparked a lot of speculation into what and why the FBI sought a warrant to retrieve possibly classified materials. Now, while the right wing is peddling, of course, deep state conspiracies about Obama judges and police or cops planting evidence and doing phishing investigations and even bizarrely assassination attempts. Yeah, I'm not kidding. Now we find out now, thanks to a confidential source, what the FBI was doing there and why, and how they knew where to look. So now, according to two senior government officials who spoke to Newsweek, the raid on Mar-a-Lago was based on information from an FBI confidential human source. One who was able to identify what classified documents former President Trump was still hiding in even the location of said documents. According to news reports, some 10 to 15 boxes of documents were removed from the premises. Trump had said in a statement that the FBI had opened his personal safe as well as part of their search. In fact, he complained about it. They even opened my personal safe. Why did they open my safe? Well, maybe it's because you had something in there. I'm sorry, does a safe imply that law enforcement shouldn't be able to get into it? Oh, say, sorry guys, I placed incriminating stuff inside my safe, you know, the first place that law enforcement would look, but you're not supposed to touch it because it's a safe. It's a literal safe space. That you're no touchy my documents. Insane, right? Now, Trump attorney Lindsay Halligan was one of the lawyers present. The other was Christina Bobb. They were present during the multi-hour search. They say that the FBI had targeted 3 different rooms: a bedroom, an office, and a storage room. So basically, Halligan corroborated the source and saying, look, this is what they targeted. And of course, the source says, well, that's because that's where the information was. Now, that also eliminates the narrative, too, that no one was allowed to be there and to know and to know what was taken. So they know this. And now, of course, Bob and Halligan were also, since they were there, shown copies of the warrant. So they also know. So now she was there. Trump was given a copy of the warrant and the materials that were taken. That is according to the law. They have to do that. The FBI does. Anybody that's telling you the opposite, of course, is a liar. Now, Republican politicians, media figures, they're all liars. Now, if Trump wanted to, by the way, he could come out with that warrant. He could easily show people, and he could tell people this is what they were looking for. This is what they have. Now, I wonder why he doesn't want to. Good question. Now, look, I think the right wing wants to ride this victimhood train all the way to the midterms. There's not any polling on this yet, sure, but I think there's a big chance this is going to energize the base because they're all furious. And remember, right wing voters at this point, a lot of them, if you're still in the Trump camp, they operate on fear and anger. And what do you think Fox News is doing? What do you think right-wing media is doing? Trump is doing? They're, for one, making you afraid, and 2, making you angry. So now here's the thing, right? The FBI didn't want that to happen. In fact, the opposite. Officials who have direct knowledge of the FBI's deliberations and were granted anonymity in order to discuss these sensitive matters said the raid of Donald Trump's Florida residence was deliberately timed to occur when the former president was away. So now, again, the reason there is that, well, we wanted to, for one, deny him a photo op. We didn't want you to get a photo op or a platform to grandstand. And so they believed that it would lower the profile of the event, that it, wouldn't make news. Do they follow the news? Do they know what the news cycle's like? Of course this was always going to be news. It's terrible reasoning. But they thought, if we just do it quietly and when Trump's not home, then, we'll just slip in, we'll get the documents, no big deal, right? We'll get it It's fine, and give them to the National Archive. Now, the justice official is quoted saying, well, that didn't work. Quote, what a spectacular backfire. You think? You think? Wow. The official also says, look, I know that there's much speculation out there that this is political persecution, but it really is the best and worst of bureaucracy in action. They wanted to punctuate the fact that this was a routine law enforcement action, stripped of any political overtones, and yet they got exactly the opposite. Of course they did. They added, a second source added, they were seeking to avoid any media circus. Failed. Sad. Baby. Again, of course, if anything to do with Trump is going to be a media circus. I mean, have you ever watched television before? No. It was, of course, going to be a circus. And so, look, there's some more quotes here from the second source. Even though everything made sense bureaucratically and the FBI feared that the documents might be destroyed, they also created the very firestorm they sought to avoid in ignoring the fallout. And that fallout being the right wing losing their minds. I showed you another video in another segment here where now the right wing is saying, oh, the FBI planted the evidence. Ah, right. Okay. So what's really funny about this is the fact that this is, again, documents that he just decided to take that didn't belong to him. He knew they didn't belong to him. And so, I mean, if you didn't want this to happen, you wouldn't have taken the documents. The Presidential Records Act, by the way, establishes that presidential records are not the property of the president. It's the property of the U.S. government. Simple as that. Now, it's a Nixon-era law that imposes some penalties for failure to comply. In fact, here's, according to the law, whoever having the custody of such record, proceeding, map, book, document, paper, or other thing willfully and unlawfully conceals, removes, mutilates, obliterates, falsifies, or destroys the same shall be fined $2,000 up to 3 years in prison, or shall forfeit his office and be disqualified from holding any office under the United States. So, very serious, right? For Trump, if he actually did get in trouble, which again, I think is pretty rare thing to happen, and I'll be honest with that, it could prevent Trump from running in 2024. So that's why, of course, Republicans are really seizing on that. Oh, see, they're only doing this because they don't want Trump to run. They're scared. They're scared. Now, what's funny, though, is that Trump made this worse for himself. Number one, by taking the documents, as I've already established. But in second, and this is the best part, back in 2018, Trump signed a law that made it a felony to remove and retain classified documents. Oops. Now, he did that because, oh, Hillary with the emails. Oh, we got the emails. Those 33,000 emails, she deleted them. And so he signed the law making it worse if you have classified documents, and then took classified documents when he left. What? In order to own Hillary Clinton, or to attempt to, he might have just owned himself. Clown of the earth, moron, idiot. Now, finally, getting back to this evidence, right? Now, according to experts familiar with FBI practices, Judge Reinhardt, who had signed off on the raid, reviewed the prosecutor's evidence and asked numerous questions about the sources, where they got this evidence, and the urgency. Meaning, of course, like the likelihood that Trump, if notified in advance, if he thought that there was going to be a raid, would destroy said evidence by, flushing it down the toilet. As he's been known to do. Now, remember, they only do this kind of raid if they believe the materials are in danger of being hidden or destroyed. Now, in order to for the investigators to convince the Florida judge to approve such a raid, that information, according to the sources, has to be solid. And they got that solid information from someone inside Mar-a-Lago. And I think that's the most important thing. See, it's not Joe Biden that signed off on this. It's not Merrick Garland that signed off on this. No, the White House says, hey, we didn't even know about this. We knew about the investigation, of course, into some missing documentation, sure, but we didn't know that there was going to be a raid. Garland also said, hey, I knew about the investigation, and I also know what they were looking for, of course, but I didn't know about the specific time of when that raid was going to happen, nor was I asked to approve it. In fact, according to the official, it's hard for people to believe, but this was a matter for the U.S. attorney and the FBI. The person, of course, who did ultimately do the go-ahead for the raid was FBI Director Christopher Wray, a Trump appointee. Remember, 2018, he appoints Wray and then was approved by almost all the Republicans in the Senate. And then that's the guy who approved the raid into Trump. Now, again, this guy's, I believe, Federalist Society member and very right-wing. But we're not talking about Obama-era leftover, okay, or holdover. Okay, we're not talking like super lib. No, we're talking about somebody who's a massive right-winger being presented with evidence that, like, hey, we think that he has these documents that are classified and that he will destroy them. So we got to go get him. We got to go get him. And we have this evidence that he has these documents in these specific rooms. Specific rooms. I know where it is, and we do so because there is a literal source inside of Mar-a-Lago. I mean, that's pretty damning. So there it is. It looks like Trump World has an insider. Oh, boy. Now, if you thought that Trump was mad when William Barr had talked to the January 6th committee, remember, this is according to testimony during the J6 hearings, where he threw his lunch against a wall. Just imagine how angry he is today upon finding out that it was somebody inside of Mar-a-Lago that ratted him out. They told the FBI, hey, we got this stuff, these documents, and I know exactly where they're at. Come get them. Ooh, wow.